Hey everyone, and welcome. You know, the future of fashion isn't being stitched together with a needle and thread anymore. Nope, it's being built, layer by tiny layer, straight from a computer file. Today, we're diving into how 3D printing is turning the entire fashion industry on its head, changing how we think about, create, and even wear our clothes.
So let me just ask you this. What if your next favorite jacket wasn't something you grabbed off a rack, but was printed out, just for you? It sounds a little like science fiction, I know, but this idea is way closer to reality than you might think, and it's exactly what we're unpacking today.
For like centuries, making clothes has been a subtractive process. You take a big piece of fabric and you cut away the parts you don't need. But we're in the middle of this massive shift to additive manufacturing, where you literally build something up from nothing. Let's get into what that actually means.
So, how does this technology actually work? Before we get to the cool outfits on the runway, let's break down the nuts and bolts of how you even print a piece of clothing. The official term is additive manufacturing, which sounds super technical, but the idea behind it is actually pretty simple. Imagine a hot glue gun that's incredibly precise, building an object from the ground up one super thin layer at a time. Instead of cutting material away and creating a ton of waste, you build only what you need.
And it turns out there isn't just one way to 3D print. It's not a one-size-fits-all deal. For example, you've got fused deposition modeling, or FDM. That's a lot like our glue gun analogy. It melts a plastic filament, which is great for solid things like accessories. But then there's selective laser sintering, SLS, which uses a powerful laser to fuse a fine powder together, allowing for these amazingly detailed and strong designs for shoes. It's all about picking the right tool for the job.
And of course, the tools are only as good as the stuff you print with. We're way beyond just basic plastics now. Designers have this incredible digital palette to play with, from flexible nylons for shoes to super glossy resins for detailed accessories and even metals for printing jewelry. And the real holy grail, those fabric-like materials, well, they're getting better and better every day.
So we've got the tech, we've got the materials, but what does this all really mean? Well, it's adding up to a genuine design revolution. It's changing not just what designers can create, but the fundamental way they create it.
I mean, just look at the difference here. In the traditional world, you have so much waste from cutting patterns out of fabric. And customization, forget about it. It's slow, it's expensive. With 3D printing, the whole script gets flipped. Waste is almost zero, customization is basically built right in. And you can go from a design on your screen to a real prototype in just hours.
And this right here, this really gets to the heart of it. It gives designers, quote, the freedom to create intricate, detailed, and complex designs that were previously impossible to produce. Think about geometric patterns or lattice work that you just can't make with a sewing machine. It's a whole new world of what's possible.
And beyond pure creativity, there's this massive win for sustainability. You know, the fashion industry is famous for making way too much stuff. Millions of items that just end up in landfills. On-demand production tackles that problem head-on. You only print what's been ordered. It's just a smarter, leaner way to make things.
Okay, so we've covered the what and the why. Now let's get down to it. How does a digital file on a computer actually become a piece of high fashion that you can wear?
You know, the whole journey is actually pretty straightforward. It all starts with a digital blueprint, usually a CAD file. Then the designer chooses the perfect material for their vision. The printer gets to work, building the design layer by painstaking layer. And finally, after a few finishing touches, you have your product. It's literally from code to couture.
And this isn't just for some far-off, futuristic runway show. 3D printing is already making a real impact across the industry. Footwear is huge, so are accessories and jewelry. But we're also starting to see it used for actual garments and even for building wearable tech directly into our clothes.
To make this really tangible, just think about sneakers. Major brands are already using this tech to create midsoles that are perfectly tailored to your individual foot shape and the pressure points from how you walk. We're not just talking about picking a custom color. We're talking about a custom fit that boosts comfort and performance. That is the real power of this.
But of course, it's not all perfect. At least, not yet. Like any technology that's a total game changer, there are some pretty big hurdles to overcome before we're all printing our own t-shirts at home. So let's get real about the challenges.
Right now, the main roadblocks really come down to three things. The industrial-grade printers are still really expensive, which is tough for smaller designers. The materials, while they're getting better, still have their limits. And there's still some big questions about, will this stuff actually last as long as my favorite pair of jeans?
And let's just focus on that material limitation for a sec. Clothing is a sensory experience, right? We want it to be soft, to breathe, to hang just right. And while printed textiles are becoming way more flexible, getting them to feel as comfortable as a soft cotton or a smooth silk, well, that's still one of the biggest mountains to climb.
And that brings us to a really deep question, one that goes way beyond the technology itself. When a design is nothing more than a digital file, it can be copied and shared infinitely, which opens up a huge can of worms when it comes to intellectual property.
I mean, how do you protect a designer's hard work from being stolen when the blueprint for their creation can be emailed across the world in a second? This is a massive legal and ethical challenge that the industry really has to figure out as this tech gets more popular.
But even with all those challenges, the future here is incredibly bright. The potential is just too big to ignore. So let's finish up by looking ahead to the next chapter that 3D printing is writing for the world of fashion.
So, what's coming down the pipeline? We can expect a much deeper push into a sustainable, circular fashion economy. Mass customization is going to go from being a luxury to just being the new standard. And you're going to see a much bigger fusion of fashion and tech, with smart functions printed right into your clothes.
Ultimately, this whole technology is about empowerment. It empowers designers with basically limitless creativity, and eventually, it's going to empower all of us. Just imagine a future where you don't pick between small, medium, or large, but instead you print clothes made for your exact measurements and your personal style.
And that leaves us with one final, fascinating thought to chew on. We've gone from sewing patterns to department stores to online shopping. The next logical step could just be a digital file. So, the question is, will the fashion of the future be something you download, not something you buy? Thanks for joining us.